Everyone, my name is Kati, and it's time for our next Awareness Monday. And it's so great. It's been so great to, um, yeah, create this Mind Your Karma community so far. It's been a few weeks now, and a few Awareness Mondays, and there've been a few questions. And answers. So it's really nice to see that growing and thriving, this co-creation of energy, space, and support, empowerment, wisdom, intuition. That's really what the space is about. And the Awareness Mondays are very much about creating consciousness, awareness around certain topics in our lives that all, matter and concern us, and to shine a light on that and see if we can, with that awareness, create more presence in our lives and, slowly growing and shifting into a new way of responding to life. Yeah, so far we've talked about setting boundaries in the previous weeks. I talked about self-compassion as a new and more gentle and kind way of engaging with ourselves. And today will be the topic of self-sabotaging and why we are. We're going to talk a little bit about why we are blocking and sabotaging our way forward. And I believe that's a topic that we all can relate to, because we all have plans and visions and desires and goals that we want to work towards too. Hello, Jenna. Good to see you online. So we have all goals that we want to work towards too. And then, oftentimes it starts off, in a motivated, passionate, enthusiastic way. And, after a few weeks, that initial passion and energy kind of like, fades away. And we start throwing in patterns or behaviors or habits that actually block that moving forward, even though in our hearts and in our minds we have this strong desire to actually reach for that goal or move forward in life. So ultimately it's that blocking of our own success. And the first question is, what does success actually mean for us? And for each of us that means something different. For some of us that might mean to have a great job and engage in something meaningful, job-wise, career-wise. For others it means to have a good balance, amongst different areas in our lives. For others that means to create a beautiful family life or relationship. For others again that might mean I want to, a successful life for me means to learn and practice and engage in my own self-care more, because I may not have done that before. So we all have different ways of defining what success actually means for us, and how that translates into our lives. So what do I mean, again, what do I mean with self-sabotaging? So no matter what goals we have, self-sabotaging or sabotaging behavior is basically anything that trips us up and comes in our way of all the things that we actually want to do. Yeah. And from the outside, it often looks, to other people, it often looks baffling. It looks like, why, for example, is he not on time? It's not so hard to do that. Why is she not losing the weight even though she wants to? Why does she not stick to her word? Like from the outside, it often looks baffling because it just is kind of like, it looks like as if, well, it's actually easy to do. And, obviously I said I want to do it. Why am I not doing it? And also on the inside, it creates a lot of this procrastinating or delaying of the things that we, set out to do. Of course, creates confusion and a lot of guilt in us. A lot of guilt and shame because we're basically constantly letting ourselves down. An important thing to really acknowledge with every self-sabotaging behavior, and I'll talk in a moment about what that all is, and how we can actually detect our own patterns around self-sabotaging a bit more. One really important thing to acknowledge is that self-sabotaging is, the blocking, our own subconscious blocking our moving forward, is a solution to something that is deep within us. It's a solution to an inattention or resistance or stress we feel about our own success, about the achieving of whatever goal we want to achieve or whatever thing we want to do in our lives. So oftentimes if we dig deeper into, okay, let's focus on that example of losing weight. It's a good example because I think a lot of people can relate to that. So say your goal is you want to lose weight, and it's a heartfelt goal. You really want to lose weight, and you create your exercise plan. You make plans around watching your diet more, incorporating more, vegetables or whatever it is that you do. And then, you start tapping out of this goal, and, you start maybe after 2 weeks or so, you start skipping exercise sessions that you actually, plan to do. And, all of a sudden, in your trolley at the supermarket, the chocolate appears again, that sort of thing. So there's this heartfelt wish and goal, I want to lose weight, for example, and then we're doing these little things that actually sabotage that. So what is that? What's the resistance around losing weight? So at some stage or somewhere inside of us, it may not feel completely safe and comfortable to lose this weight. And therefore, all of our sabotaging, all of our, procrastinating or, doing the opposite of what we actually intended to do, turns into the solution. Well, actually, losing this weight at a deeper level doesn't feel safe because it has a different purpose for me. And therefore, again, subconsciously, I need to somehow throw in things, hurdles and barriers that make it harder for me to achieve that goal. So in other words, that I don't have to achieve it. So a good example as to why it may not feel safe or comfortable is the belief, and that's an example, and you can check in with you if that relates. The belief, oh my God, what if I lose all this weight, but then I always have to watch my diet for the rest of my life, and have to keep up with it. And that can create huge pressure and stress and tension inside of us. So, actually staying the same at a certain level feels easier. It feels more familiar. Yeah, because we don't have to kind of like change um, other patterns or ways of doing. So that's just only one example, hey, how our um, self-sabotaging behavior is actually a solution to to an inner conflict that we're having. We're having on the one side this wish, this desire, this goal that we want to achieve something, and then on the other side there's actually some fear or resistance around the visualization of this, outcome or success that we connect with our goal. And that's for all of you, whatever it is that you want to achieve in your lives at this stage, and you're feeling like, there's a block, I'm not quite moving forward into the direction where I'd like to see me. A good question you could ask yourself is, well, if I visualize myself, if I kind of like visualize myself and in that state of, maybe 6 months ahead, and I have achieved my goal. So probably first that feels good, and the visualization and the images that come up are like, yes, that's what I really want. But then if you're kind of like the deeper, does it actually feel safe to all of a sudden, for example, have lost all this weight, or to all of a sudden be like, I'm speaking more up, I'm standing more in my truth, and setting my boundaries in a firmer way. I'm I'm allowing myself to shine more. I'm being more authentic. Whatever it is, whatever it is that you want to do, but constantly not do. Yeah, and really feel into your body. Does that really feel entirely safe and confident and comfortable, or is there somewhere resistance? Is there somewhere, yeah, that feels great, but, and then digging a little bit deeper into the what's the but? What is that blocks me from actually moving forward? So, that's a really important key towards navigating around our self-sabotaging, and we all do it. I just want to also point that out again and stress that actually, we all have to some extent these self-sabotaging habits within us, because all of us have areas in our lives that create stress, tension, conflict, or some sort of, well, a lack of inner safety. And in order to keep us safe, that's basically the main goal, so survival, and survival means keeping us safe. So we will keep doing what we're doing in order to keep us safe. And if the self-sabotaging is our final solution to do that, and like I said before, it is that solution, we'll keep doing that. So the first step really is to acknowledge, oh, my self-sabotaging, my procrastination, my being late all the time, my not being reliable with my family and friends, my night binge eating, you know, rituals that actually block me from losing the weight, yeah, and so on. So again, whatever the goal is, it's actually at a deeper level a solution to feeling safe again. But of course, in the long run, it kind of like backfires and catches up with us, because we then tap into this guilt and shame cycle, which of course doesn't feel good, because like I said before, it's that feeling we constantly let ourselves down, and that doesn't feel good. Yeah, so it taps into this worthiness as well, and into self-worth. Am I good enough? And that in itself is also one of the inner core beliefs. If I don't feel I'm good enough to have all this success, or to have all of this you know, to have my desires and wishes and dreams fulfilled, I will very likely self-sabotage. So I want to kind of like tap into a few very typical self-sabotaging habits. Just to make it easier for you. It's about giving you a bit of a navigation, a map, so that you can easily detect in your day-to-day life, you know, what's that all about? So a very typical classical one is procrastination, and you know, it's so easy to do. It's you know, it's so easy to excuse as well. You know, say you have a full to-do list, and you know, and there are a few things on it that kind of like sound okay to you, manageable, achievable, and then there might be this one huge thing that just doesn't appeal to you. So what do? We, of course, you know, focus on all the things around that big, huge task that we just don't want to do. But inside of us, you know, it keeps building up, and it probably may not even be this huge task, but we make it this huge task, and yeah, procrastinate the ticking of it, you know. And you know, me personally, I have this with report writing. So, you know, in my capacity as a psychologist, I have to write reports every now and then. And anytime when there's a wave of, you know, a few reports are piling up, I catch myself procrastinating. And, you know, I can feel that inattention building up, and it just doesn't feel good. And, you know, in moments like that, all of my, you know, my emails are all on track, you know, everything is on track. my my house looks nice and clean. You know, all phone calls are answered, but just, you know, these reports are still there, you know, and they create tension. Yeah, so procrastination is a very, very common self-sabotaging habit, and probably something that you can relate to, that all of us can relate to. And then we have another one. The second one is playing it small. And that's an interesting one. So this is all about that fear of fully stepping up into our full potential. Basically that fear to shine. Yeah, and why would we have that fear? Well, mostly it's about fear of judgment, fear of failure, yeah, fear of, oh my God, what if I step up and I'm not good enough, you know. It's a good example of what, you know, like in our online based world these days, you know, like going online and talking and showing your face like I do just right now. You know, of course I have those thoughts as well, you know, but just before jumping online, will that be of value? Will people benefit? You know, we all have that. We all have those inner voices, and playing it small, we have that tendency. We might actually not show up. We might find reasons to not go online and, you know, talk about procrastination or self-sabotaging, for example. And kind of like pretend to ourselves, no, I'm just satisfied and content with what is. I don't have to go big, you know. So we find excuses in our minds and justify basically our, you know, our being stuck in a certain, state. So that fear of change, that is as well. And then we have another one, another category, and that's about wasting or, you know, kind of like ruining opportunities. So that is similar to what the category I just talked about. So for example, you may have a work meeting, or even an interview at, for a job, and then maybe there's a fear of not being good enough again, failing, being judged, not having what it takes or what is needed. And then we might show up unprepared, or again, even late. And and we're already setting up the situation that if we actually really don't get that job, we can then justify it towards ourselves, within ourselves. Well, I didn't really prepare anyway. It was because I was late. So it's really interesting how, when we actually dig a little bit deeper, how we're already setting up the situation at a subconscious level, to keep ourselves basically safe. And it's a false sense of safety. We can already see that, because it's what we think keeps us safe. Yeah, in relation to our fear, the fear of shining, the fear of stepping up. What keeps me safe is not to do it, justify to myself I'm not doing it. I'm just gonna go there unprepared. I'm just gonna show up late. I'm just gonna not do, the task that I'm meant to do. Yeah. Then another category of self-sabotaging behavior is the fear of changing, and that the fear of, the willingness or the fear to change something within ourselves or in our relationships. Yeah, and it's connected with that fear of rocking the boat and being, criticized or rejected, or being the difficult one, being, in any way, shape or form inconvenient to someone else, not being able to please others around us anymore. So we hold back, we hold ourselves back, and in order to not rock the boat, say in a good example, our romantic relationships, intimate relationships, we may not bring things up in order to not rock the boat, and we may just stay the same. Maybe our goal is to set boundaries more firmly with our partners, or to talk more about our needs. And out of that fear of rocking the boat, we may not do it, because we may think, if I talk more about if I'm more demanding or talk more about my needs, my partner may leave. I may be too much. Yeah, I may be too difficult. So that's a huge price we pay, because it's again also keeping ourselves small. Yeah, so you can already see these categories are not exclusive, but just shine a light on different aspects of that self-sabotaging behavior. And then we have another interesting one, which we probably all can relate to in some way, shape or form, and that's an overcompensation of any kind. So for example, overspending money, even though we actually don't have that money to spend. Overeating, over drinking, overworking, workaholism. Am I saying that right? I'm not sure. All of these any type of overcompensation. Why are we doing this? Why are we going overboard with some things? Well, it's pretty simple actually, and straightforward, on an inner level. We're actually more complex, but if we break it down, it's actually simple. It keeps us from feeling. It keeps us from feeling boredom, or feeling inferior, or little, or small, or not good enough. It keeps us from feeling guilt and shame. But especially, but in the long run, actually, all these overcompensative behaviors, they then again push us into the negative feelings. Again, you know, that guilt and shame when we have overspent, when we have eaten too much, or, you know, when we did drink the alcohol even though we said we wanted to reduce that. So again, just, you know, to give you a summary of those 5 main categories, we have the procrastination, yeah, delaying any task, any desire or goal that we set out to do. Then the second one was the playing it small, yeah, that fear of shining and fully stepping up into our potential, showing ourselves to the world. Then the third one was wasting or ruining opportunities, yeah, showing up unprepared, showing up late, showing a certain phase of ourselves that we may not even like about ourselves. Then the fourth one was avoiding to rock the boat, yeah, out of that fear, oh my God, what if I start being more demanding, and talk more about my needs or set boundaries, what if I'm being rejected? And then the, you know, the entire range of overcompensation and overspending, overdrinking, overeating, overworking, overloading ourselves with whatever substance or process in order to not feel, to avoid or numb our feelings. Yeah, so as you were listening today, you probably have recognized some of these behaviors, and perhaps even caught yourself. You know, you could allocate yourself to all of these categories, and if so, that just testifies that you're just a normal human being on this planet Earth. So you know what this little map can help you to do is to become more present and aware with, you know, your own self-sabotaging behavior, your own patterns around that. And, you know, as you go through this week, I really invite you to be more, you know, to just be a bit more aware of, are there things that I actually want to do, and I constantly do the opposite, or I'm just not doing it? And asking yourself, well, what's the downside? What's the downside of actually achieving my goal? Well, losing weight, getting this job, getting the reports done, being more demanding or clear in your relationships, etc. So what's the downside of achieving that goal? Yeah, what doesn't feel safe yet? What doesn't feel comfortable within you when you think about that goal? And you could also ask yourself, well, and what's actually the upside of staying like I am? Yeah, which will just, you know, help you to understand what are you trying to protect within you. And acknowledging and realizing that will help you to overcome that hurdle and to, you know, going forward from here. And it's a process. Remember, it's a process. It's not, you know, a one-time event. But going forward from here, more and more choose or build up, learn and choose different behaviors that will give you a good, confident and safe feeling within. Because at the end of the day, the self-sabotaging is actually, it is a solution, but it is also a form of misguided self-love and self-care. Yeah? That's that, you know, the intention, the purpose behind it is to look after ourselves and keep us safe, but in the long run it doesn't, and we know that. So in order to break those patterns and move forward in a different way, we need to, acknowledge that and be gentle and compassionate towards ourselves by acknowledging that there's a solution. However, I'm now ready and willing to realize and acknowledge that this solution is not working out. It's not keeping me safe. It's not getting me where I want to be in life. All right. Well, having said that, I hope you will have a wonderful moving forward momentum this week. Again, if you have any questions, please, please ask them. You can just comment on the video and, just throw in all your questions around that topic of self-sabotaging, our moving forward in life. And I will see you again in 2 weeks' time on Monday. And you have a wonderful, wonderful week. Enjoy the sun wherever you are.